rockets are going to be a lot more effective than those bullets are. And what a surprise that would be to UFOs who, and you know, Richard, they were basically playing cat and mouse with our aircraft over the years. They were just checking them out and testing to see how close they could come in, where the bullets would drop off, how fast they could go, blah, 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 all that kind of stuff. And then bang, they're basically overnight, here's all of these aircraft coming in with computers on board carrying rockets.
It's almost like a new milestone in the military confrontations with these unknown objects that took place in 1952. And as a result of that, there is obviously something going on where several of these were dropped off the coast of Washington, D.C. in September 1952. American jets were ready or waiting for them and attacked and engaged them and shot them and damaged them. And then these objects moved west across the United States and in different directions.
The interesting point, Richard, is we know Keogh did research back in the 40s and 50s about key government installations and atomic plants and Air Force bases where UFOs were seen over for years. Well, it was no coincidence that this first damaged object that came in was making a beeline, and it was gunning for Oak Ridge National Laboratory. The second one that came in a few minutes later went northwest, and it was targeting and going directly at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. Directly at it. If you look at the master map, you can see it. It's amazing. The third object that came in made a beeline and went directly over Washington, D.C., and that was actually the Flatwoods Monster craft. And I tracked that coming directly over Washington, and that is where the New York Times talks about the article the following day, the flame over Washington.
Is this the same one as over Baltimore? There was a lot of different coverage of these objects that night. They were all treated primarily as separate incidents, but obviously these are all related.
They told everybody that they saw a single fireball meteor.
Yeah.
The one I went over Baltimore was the one that headed up towards Wright-Patterson.
I see. Okay.
You know, so we have three objects basically coming in. It was like a triad. Mm-hmm. And the third one that came over Washington. Now, what's interesting is by using the time stamps, Richard,
right.
The first one that was in Tennessee and the second one that was gunning up towards Wright-Pat, when the flame over Washington came directly over Washington, and it was seen by thousands of people. People were out. It was actually hot that day. It was an Indian summer. People are outside driving in their convertibles, walking their dogs, pushing their kids in the strollers, and they're looking up and they're seeing this thing come treetop level over Washington. That was what you referenced. This thing was being flown, one of the witnesses.
I see, yeah.
Well, when this thing flew over Washington and just passed west of D.C. and was not intercepted, the other two objects turned away. The timestamps all bring that together, and that's amazing. They were actually gunning and putting the heat on those two installations, and the second the third one came in, wasn't taken down. The other two turned and went reverse, and then I tracked them over about 30, 40 locations.
So what were they doing, and where did they end up? What ended up happening to those?
The one that flew down into the Tennessee area, that actually backtracked, and what happened is when it landed, it set off a search and rescue by the local area. There was ambulances sent there. There were seen flares, what were said to be flares going off. Mm-hmm. And by the time the local police and the ambulance and the fire department, everybody was there, the thing had taken off already, and I traced it going back south and leaving the United States. The other one,
it basically got away.
It got away.
Right.
But basically, the way it was explained to me, and this is the easiest way that it was put to me in layman's terms, it's like in a street fight. The first one that came down, there's the kick to the crotch. The second one that was up towards right, Pat, there's your head shot. The third shot is the heart shot. That's the one that knocked them out. and that came down over Washington. So you have 1, 2, 3.
Okay.
It's like, hey, look, check out what we're going to do.
Got it.
You don't have the balls to stop us. Fuck you. We're going, and we're going to crash into Oak Ridge, and we're going to land right in the heart of Wright-Patterson. And if you don't like it, you know.
Right, gotcha.
So when the third one came down unscathed, they took the heat off. They were putting the pressure on, Richard.
Okay.
You know, that's military strategy.
I see what you're. Okay, I get it
The
now.
third one that came in was the most damaged one, Richard. And that thing could have been taken out. That was the Flatwoods Monster craft. That thing was really fucked up.
Okay.
And that had pieces falling off of it. It was seen by everybody in Washington. It was seen over Virginia. And it took about a half an hour for it to fly from Washington all the way into Flatwoods. And we were able to figure out it was actually flying about 400 miles an hour. The government said it was a meteor. If it was a meteor, it would have reached Flatwoods in about 7 seconds.
Right, absolutely.
Not
Okay.
25 to 30 minutes.
So this is actually a really good overview of the whole. Really, this is the prequel to the famous Flatwoods Monster case, and I'm glad